5 odd Star Trek Deep Space Nine details you only notice when rewatching the first few episodes. There are some odd details that you only notice in the first few episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine on a rewatch. Like Star Trek, The Next Generation before it, Star Trek Deep Space Nine took some time to find its footing and establish its characters. DS9 eventually embraced serialization in a way that was new for the Star Trek franchise. So the differences between Deep Space Nine's early episodes and its later stories are stark. More than any other Star Trek show of its era, Deep Space Nine's characters and setting went through significant changes over its 7 seasons. Some differences in early DS9 are just starting points for Star Trek Deep Space Nine's character arcs that were always intended to be part of the story. Commander Benjamin Sisko's Avery Brooks' journey from not accepting his role as emissary of the prophets to embracing his status as a Bajoran spiritual figure is central to Deep Space Nine's overall arc. The change from the benevolent Kai Opaka Camille Saviola to the viscerally terrible Kaiwin Louise Fletcher is also notable but planned. These weird details are things I noticed that probably weren't supposed to change but did. Some visual differences in Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 1 are particularly striking. In Deep Space Nine's premiere episode, Emissary, the hair and makeup looks for DS9 series regulars haven't quite been finalized. Major Kira Neri's Nanavisitor sports a longer hairstyle inspired by Star Trek, The Next Generation's Ensign Ro-Laren Michelle Forbes. Constable Odo's Renee Auberjonois hair is different, and Quark Armin Shimerman lacks the dark red circles around his eyes. Avery Brooks's Commander Benjamin Sisko is clean-shaven instead of the bald, goateed look Captain Sisko would adopt in DS9 Season 4. In the pantheon of Star Trek shows, Deep Space Nine DS9 stands out as a bold experiment. It dared to go stationary in a franchise built on starships, grappled with darker themes, and introduced a serialized format long before binge watching was the norm. But what happens when you revisit the earliest episodes, those opening salvos that tried to define what this strange new Star Trek was going to be? If you're a longtime fan returning to the beginning of DS9, you might find it a bit jarring. There are moments, characters, and choices that seem off compared to where the show ends up. In hindsight, these oddities are part of the charm, like the awkward first steps of a child who later becomes a marathon runner. Here are 5 of the strangest, most fascinating details in the first few episodes of Deep Space Nine that you probably forgot or missed entirely until your rewatch. 1. Everyone is weirdly mean to Odo, and he kind of deserves it. Odo would go on to be one of DS9's most beloved characters, a curmudgeonly but principled security chief with a heart of liquid gold. But in the earliest episodes, he's, well, kind of a jerk. He's terse to the point of being rude, suspicious of everyone, and possesses the emotional range of a stone. Worse still, the rest of the crew doesn't seem to like him either. Kira barely tolerates him, Sisko keeps him at arm's length, and Quark, well, Quark's feelings are mutual. At this point in the show, Odo is less the wise shapeshifter and more like your cranky upstairs neighbor who files noise complaints about your cat. Even his backstory is oddly vague. He's just the shapeshifter. No founders. No dominion. Just a blob in a bucket with a badge. It's a far cry from the rich lore that develops around him later, making his early presence feel both mysterious and strangely undercooked. 2. The station looks like a dumpster fire. There's no polite way to say it. Tarek nor looks like a half-finished high school theater set in the first few episodes. Yes, we understand the station has just been handed over from the Cardassians, who stripped it down to the studs on their way out. But still, DS9 initially looks less like the futuristic hub of interstellar diplomacy and more like an intergalactic junkyard. The promenade is grimy. The lights flicker ominously. The uniforms clash. Even the computer interface beeps sound like someone spilled soda on a 1990s modem. It's a far cry from the sleek interiors of the Enterprise D. And honestly, that's part of what makes DS9 work. On a rewatch, this detail feels less like a budgetary limitation and more like a brilliant piece of visual storytelling. This is not a utopia handed to our characters, they're going to have to earn it. Still, it's hard not to laugh at how run down everything looks. especially when characters like Bashir act like this is the glamorous frontier of medicine. He's out there treating phaser wounds next to flickering lights and panels held together with space duct tape. 3. Bashir is somehow the worst and the most enthusiastic. Speaking of Dr. Julian Bashir, remember how he starts the show as a walking HR violation? In his very first scene, Bashir refers to DS9 as the wilderness and expresses giddy excitement at treating weird alien diseases instead of curing the flu. He fawns over Yajia Dax like a love-struck teenager and casually insults Kira's entire worldview. He's like if you put every Starfleet ideal into a blender and then added 3 shots of espresso and a dash of condescension. What's strange is that the show clearly wants us to like him. He's smart. He's charming. He wants to do good. But on a rewatch, it's painfully clear that early Bashir was designed to be a bit grating, if only to give him room to grow. And grow he does. By the time the show hits its stride, Bashir becomes one of the most nuanced characters in Trek, complete with genetic enhancements and a complex friendship with Garak. But early Bashir? You'd almost expect him to deliver a TED Talk on frontier medicine and how I'm the future of humanity. 4. Sisko versus Picard, the most awkward scene in Trek history. You remember it. Everyone remembers it. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, still recovering from the trauma of being Locutus of Borg, offers a courteous, diplomatic welcome to DS9's new commander. And Sisko, who lost his wife in the Battle of Wolf 359, responds with a barely concealed snarl of resentment. It's a phenomenal piece of acting from both Avery Brooks and Patrick Stewart. But on a rewatch, it's also shockingly uncomfortable. We're so used to Trek captains being respectful of one another that Sisko's reaction feels almost sacrilegious. And yet, it's deeply human. What makes this scene so odd isn't just the hostility, it's the fact that nobody talks about it afterward. Sisko doesn't apologize. Picard doesn't follow up. Starfleet just shrugs and goes, well, guess that's handled. In retrospect, this early tension is a smart move. It tells us right away that DS9 isn't going to play by the same rules. Sisko isn't Picard. He's angry, grieving, and very much not okay. That he eventually becomes one of the most measured and thoughtful leaders in the franchise is a testament to the show's long-form storytelling, but that first impression? Ice cold. 5. The wormhole aliens are kind of trolls? The Celestial Temple, the Prophets, the wormhole aliens. Whatever you call them, they are weird. In the first few episodes, Sisko enters the wormhole and has a non-linear encounter with the aliens who live there. It's meant to be profound and spiritual. Instead, it comes across as part mind-bending metaphysics, part therapy session, and part improv scene. The prophets latch onto Sisko's memories like a toddler grabbing shiny keys. They fixate on his dead wife. They question the concept of time. They repeat words back to him with wide-eyed confusion. Watching it now, it plays like a cross between Inception and a lost episode of Sesame Street. And the weirdest part? These beings eventually become a major cornerstone of the show's mythology. They even possess people and influence galactic politics. But in the beginning, they're just poking at Sisko's trauma like cosmic pranksters trying to figure out what a baseball game is. On rewatch, the whole sequence has an uncanny, almost Lynchian energy. It's beautiful. It's disturbing. It's a little silly. It's quintessential DS9.